Okay, so last night was leadership 2, and we had the 12 sergeants and had an observer, a gunnery sergeant. Mike Stripe was also there. He's the author of this lesson. What I'd like to do is kind of ask Pat to recap the issues that he had the week leading up to with the essay, because if anything, it's a tell for what's going to happen in the future, I believe, anyway.
Hey, Jen, we'll start right into it. Going into the essay, I had them start with, and I learned this lesson from the career course, I did not have them just wait until Wednesday to turn in an essay. I told them they had, now this was on a Wednesday to Wednesday model, I told them they had by Saturday, 1600 to present me with their proposed thesis statement. And I told them once they got that to me, I would either approve it, make corrections, or tell them to continue on. After that, I told them they had until Monday to provide me their entire intro paragraph with their amended thesis statement and their next 3 topic sentences for the 3 paragraphs of their paper. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I will tell you, there was not a single thesis statement that I got on Saturday that would have passed a paper or not been extremely painful to grade and would have been a complete waste of everybody's time. So I don't see any of, and it's just like we do with the staff sergeants, because we taught thesis statement a couple of weeks ago. You know how we do with the staff sergeants? We teach it in week 4 and they write their paper in week 10, and it seems by week 10 they forgot all about the week 4 reading and class. In this instance, they only did it a couple of weeks ago, but they were just god-awful theses. All 12 of them terrible, not a single good one in the bunch. However, I will say this, when I fixed them for them, not fixed them for them, but gave them suggestions and told them why they were on or off base and had them resubmit, I ended up with 12 good theses, and they all had good topic sentences that were going to tie into that thesis. So, which in turn, and I haven't graded them yet, but just in having looked at the papers, it's going to be a whole lot less pain for me to grade and get back to them and do any kind of remediation than if I just let them, gave them a deadline of, hey, paper due by next Wednesday. Okay, so that's the way I did that. That's the way I would recommend to continue to do that. I'll put that in the good, the bad, and the ugly report, and I'll put the initial submission of theses under the ugly, because they were so bad it isn't even funny. A lot of them didn't even understand that this week coming up is a remediation week. Apparently we didn't cover that enough in week 1, which I thought we did. They all thought they were coming to class next week, and they were complaining that the workload between having to do the paper this week and the book next week was too much work for them, until I explained to them that they're not even coming to class next week, and they have all next week to work on the book report, or book review rather. And that was about half the class, honestly, was flabbergasted that they actually have a week of remediation and aren't showing up next week. So I probably needed to do a better job of explaining that and messaging that up front also. That's really the only things going into class. Any questions on either of those 2 things?
No, that's a good technique about the developing in the entire portion with the thesis and topic sentences.
Yeah, because I can tell you, Calvin, I would have wasted so much time grading such horrible papers and failing everybody that it would have taken up. And I look at it from the HVAC point of view of how much we're going to pay in HVAC. And we ain't paying them, an extra 10 hours worth of work to work on bad papers.
Yeah.
So, Dwayne, go ahead and chime in. I see that you want to say something.
Did you have something, Dwayne?
Is anybody speaking right now?
Oh. Yeah, Dwayne, jeez,
Yeah.
You can't hear us.
Yeah, meeting's over.
Come on. Shit happened last week, too.
Yeah, there were technical difficulties here. Tank, you still there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, did you hear all that?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dwayne, you there?
For some reason, Dwayne dropped. Okay, I'm just going to continue to press on. If you had no issues on that, Tank, and we'll ask Dwayne to just listen to the first couple minutes of this YouTube when it gets posted. The takeaway for me is to make sure that we're doing it equally across the board, and just like we've done with the Career Corps seminar, giving the learners the opportunity to remediate, that same principle was applied last night and explained to the learners that, hey, you're going to get it returned to you, and it's going to have a grade, and if you want to raise your grade, then you're going to have to take my comments, and this is Pat that explained this to him last night, and then resubmit and say, hey, I'd like to submit a revised essay for a raise in my grade. And then he'll have to go in there and not clear the attempt, but yeah, well, there's a different thing that you want to do. You don't want to hit clear attempt. I can't remember what the button is to make sure that there's a record of the first attempt, but it allows them to submit a second attempt, and then there's afforded the opportunity to improve their grade, if they so choose. So if they're happy with an 80, I guess they're happy with an 80. But the opportunity for remediate was definitely announced that when you get it back, if you don't like your grade, everybody has an opportunity. But for those that fall below an 80, you must remediate. So any comments on that? Okay.
None here.
All right. So then,
Hey, can you hear me?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a comment. So, a couple comments. How many times do you allow them to resubmit?
The way I'm going to do it, Dwayne, what I told them was I will grade their papers probably today, tomorrow, and Sunday. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. They have one more chance to resubmit. Anybody below 80
I can hear
is
you.
a requirement. Anybody above 80, they just need to. Okay, and anybody above 80, they need to contact me and let me know if they want to resubmit or not, and they'll get one more chance on a resubmission, and that's it.
Okay, Roger, one more question. Okay, you said that their thesis statements was really bad. Can you be more specific and tell me why were they so bad?
Some of them didn't answer the prompt. Some of them answered part of the prompt and not all of it. Some of them were just written so horribly I couldn't even understand what the hell they were trying to say. It ran the gamut of bad writing. I don't even know what to tell you other than it, for the most part, didn't answer the prompt or didn't fully answer, because some of the prompts are like a two-parter, and we can discuss that later too. But yeah, they were just awful. I don't even know how to explain it other than, like, I would read it. There was two students that didn't highlight in bold what prompt they were answering, and I had no idea what the hell prompt they were answering based off reading the thesis. Like, normally you could kind of tell.
So to address the one bad prompt real quick, we're going to look at that one. We've already decided we're going to neck that down and ask. It's prompt number 2, and it asks about personal and professional. We're going to neck that down to just professional, and it's really a 3-part prompt question. But the other two, 1 and 3, I didn't see any issues with.
No, we didn't have any with the writers. A lot of the students that wanted to answer number 2 complained that because the prompt was asking 3 separate questions. It was very hard to wrap that up in a thesis, and they felt that they couldn't keep the paper within the confines because of how big the prompt was. And to be honest, I agree with them on that we need to fix that prompt.
And we're going to address that. It'll be fixed before you pilot yours.
Anything else on the paper or the book review? Okay. Y'all there? Y'all up?
Sounds good to me.
Dwayne, Tank, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to roll into now the curriculum for the how I broke the lesson plan down.
Roger.
Yeah, we started this week, and just because it was important, and they asked us up here at CDET to make sure that the students were being made aware of this. I started it with the commandants, the 2 white letters, and the mandatory page 11 that they all need to sign within 30 days. It'll now be part of their record. You all are aware of that, correct?
Yes.
White letter 1 text 17 and Allmar 008.
The white letter 1 text 17, Allmar 008, and then the white letter on the manual page 11 entry. Anyways, I started the class with that. It tied right into leadership foundations anyway. It tied into sexual assault, hazing, whatever you want to call all this stuff. And we had a really, really good, that went about 40 minutes. And I budgeted for that time because I really felt like the 6 issues for consideration really wouldn't carry me for a full 3-hour class the way I had wanted to structure it. So I didn't mind opening it up with that. So we went into a good 40-minute discussion, really robust, on everything from, this, whether you want to call it cyberbullying, cyber sexual assault, or harassment with the pictures and all that, commandant's response. I had a couple cyber Marines in the group that were reiterating about the cyber world and how this task force that's being developed can no kidding probably find out who you are if you're doing this, and they were giving a little mini class within the class on smartphones and Facebook and all the social media crap and the blowbacks that can come because of it. So that was really, I thought, beneficial to the class. We rolled from that into the Ribbon Creek discussion, which was IFC number 1, I believe. That was really good. We went through, a lot of them were talking about correlations between, if they thought they received any kind of extracurricular drill instructor hazing while they were at boot camp, what they thought about it, what McKeon did. We broke it down into basically how the command environment was partially responsible for all that. And we ran through a whole bunch in that one IFC that covered just about everything we wanted to talk to during this lesson about an NCO failing in their institutional role or organizational role or what impact that could have on the institution. We talked about that. We talked about how you can hold others accountable. I broke it into subordinates, peers, and seniors and had them all give some examples of how you would hold different people accountable. You talk to a subordinate or a peer or a senior different. What's the pitfalls of that? How does all that work? So we breezed right through those next 3 IFCs, which would be, I think that's IFC 1, 2, and 3 in the next 50-minute session of class. It flowed really well from the outline that was provided on FactEv. I wouldn't recommend changing any of that for the first 3. And that conversation, each piece flowed right into the next. Like, you didn't really have to stop and introduce a new subject. One just kind of sort of rolled right into the other one. So if you're paying attention as an instructor, you can see that they were starting to hit on your next IFC, so it was easy to roll into that one. After final break, I wanted to come back and wrap up the last 3 IFCs. One that talked about the difference between EMI and hazing. I basically asked them if they knew the difference, if any of that was instituted at their units as far as EMI, what the differences were, how you could get in trouble if you don't know the differences, how you could use one to correct a mistake, punishment worthy of the crime, that kind of stuff. they seem to have gotten that, although a couple were a little hazy on it, and a couple just professed that they'd never even heard of it because their units that they've been in have never even done any kind of EMI. Some of them had it confused with EPD from an NJP, so we had to clear that up. So we rolled pretty good into that one. I'll tell you, and I discussed this with Mike Strive, I don't really like and didn't, as I was looking at it before I brought up the topic in class, the next IFC, because it specifically referenced hazing, sexual assault, and fraternization. None of the readings even touched on sexual assault or fraternization, so I tried to go around that a little bit, and we just talked about lasting effects in the unit on hazing. I think part of the workaround for that is next cycle through we might add in an IMI and touch on sexual assault fraternization. I'll let Mike talk about what changes he might make based off of what he observed in class. But we kept that one a little bit short because we had been talking forever about hazing, and because that next IFC talked about it again, lasting effects, we just rolled right into that one. And then the last bit of class, the last IFC, I put my own spin on it. The question was, how can you prevent negative situational forces within a command environment that would lead to immoral behavior? What I wanted to do was break that, or at least what I thought, instead of talking about undue command influences and maybe a toxic command environment or officer or staff NCO related, I wanted them to think about the insurgents working within any given command, which is in that Lance Corporal Underground. So we talked about barracks lawyers, the Lance Corporal Underground itself, the toxic shitbird that could be a good Marine but decides he wants to be a bad Marine and gets other people to follow him because he does have, you know, like, he's got all the leadership qualities, he just chooses to use them in a negative fashion. So we threw that around for about the last 15 minutes of class, and that was a pretty good discussion. There was many ways an instructor could have taken that one. I just wanted them to focus on what goes on in the subordinate world and to be aware of what could be going on at the barracks behind their backs and all that kind of stuff. And that we rolled that right up into previewing both the remediation week, and it took us a good 10 minutes once again to talk through this damn book review, explaining to them that what they're going to post on the discussion board is shorter and less formal and not as detailed as what they're going to turn in for their homework book review. So but there was a lot of confusion about that once again, which I think we cleared up, but it did take an extra 10 minutes of after class time to clear that up, as they seemed to be confused on that two-part submission, one on the discussion board and one as a more formal written paper homework type assignment.
So for IFC2 on a book review discussion board tab, that's where
Before we go into the book review and another writing assignment, is there any questions on the
well, I was going to let you come back to it, but yeah, because you was on it. But we're going to create a example post because it seems like they just need to be a little bit more spoon-fed, and we'll see how this goes. So that'll be posted before you pilot yours. But now let's go ahead and go back. Questions on anything and everything that Pat's discussed up to this point?
None from Ken.
Thanks, Wayne. You got any questions on any of that?
No, PT, I'm good, man.
Yeah, that one, like I said, that one was really good. If you just, you know, with a couple of changes, I think Michael talked about those in that, but that was a really easy.
No, sir, I'm good to go.
Yeah, that was one that was pretty easy to follow from the spool right on into your class without you having to, I don't think, make too many changes or get too inventive, and that I think that would be easy to keep us all on the same path on that one. Okay, Mike.
All right. Having sent it on the class last night and saw kind of how my lesson unfolded with the students, I am going to add the IMI 5415 from Sergeant's course CEP with regard to staffer. The white letter that Pat started with will also be added. We discussed that before the class and decided that that would be great, a great opener for the class, especially with it being a current event. So I'll add that to this lesson. additionally, into the spool, I will add a highlighted version of that to give the instructors some talking points off of the white letter and things to discuss with the students. The reason we're adding the IMIs is because it's obvious that the students, even though that it's a prerequisite to get into the course, the students don't have an understanding of the SAPR program itself and the foundational elements of it. So I think they would be able to speak better to the subject if they reviewed that IMI first. Hazing we covered in depth with the reads. When Pat started talking about the first IFC, who was McKeon, we started to get into societal norms and the differences between 1950s and 2016 United States Marine Corps and societal norms. One of the big things was that McKeon said that he slapped recruits, but he's never slapped a recruit any harder than he slapped his own son. And that didn't send off cautions and warnings to anybody, because back then it was okay to correct your child by slapping them. It talked about the officers being in the club womanizing. That didn't set off any warnings, alerts, or cautions during the investigation because it was a societal norm. And necessarily the drinking didn't set off any warning cautions until it was brought to the barracks, because back then, and you've all heard, some of you may have even been in, when you could have 2 drinks at lunchtime. So our society has changed quite a bit since then, and it's because of situations like this that they just clamp down on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable behavior. So we'll throw a little bit of that in there to give the instructor some historical essay on those societal norms. I'm also going to add the Marine Corps order for hazing, sexual assault, fraternization, and EMI into the supplementals so that the students can go into there and use those as reference as well when answering the IFCs. Other than that, that's about all I'm going to add. I will point out that in the spool for the IFC on what's the difference between hazing and EMI, there is a red highlighted warning caution for the instructors. And it says, instructors should refrain from telling sea stories as this is a sensitive subject in today's environment. Make sure any personal examples fit the strict guidelines of EMI. And as experienced of an instructor as Pat is, the students were fishing. The students went fishing for sea stories. So if you don't have an experienced instructor such as Pat, it's going to be very easy for these instructors to start boasting about what they did when they were younger. And we don't need that crap. So please, please oversee that and harp that on your instructor staff when this comes out. All right? Because it could seriously send this whole thing in the wrong direction real quick. So they got to refrain from the sea stories, especially if they don't apply to EMI. And that's all I've got. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good deal. So at the end of the night, I interviewed 2 of the student learners, and the 2 sergeants that I interviewed, they paraphrasing, they basically restated the end state for the lesson almost right off of the spool. It was a well-delivered class, and they got it, what this lesson was supposed to do for them, how they were going to apply it back at their units, and how these things, such as, hazing, et cetera, need to be removed and replaced with things like constructive IMI, and how those lead to creating a more ethical environment, an environment that remains professional, et cetera. So that was a pretty good takeaway. The only other thing I'd like to wrap up with is I did have a conversation with Tim Devlin over last week's issue for start time, and he still wants to start on the 12th of June, take a break, and then reconvene lesson 2 on 26 June. As far as the op pause, after the RD down at Lejeune had a conversation with Mr. Kerrigan, the op pause is back on. However, we still are intending to brief during your pilot to the leadership so that we can actually begin full steam ahead with OneTAC 18. We don't know when we'll be able to get in there. First, we have to finish this. We got to get all the data and information, and we got to prepare it and brief it, and then we'll wait for the decision to say, yes, this is going to be a continuing effort forever, and it should start immediately. So we are preparing for OneTAC 18. We'll be ready for you, and we won't know, and it may be a short trigger to say, hey, it's on if you can get students or not. And we haven't set a line in the sand. He's TAD right now. Tim Devlin is. So when he gets back and when this pilot is finished, the plan is to get a brief together and get all the data and get it briefed, and then get the decision makers to slap the table and say, yes, we need this thing to last and continue on, and let's do it immediately. So you got any questions on any of that?
None from campaign.
Good deal. Dwayne, you good? Okay.
I am good to go, sir.
Awesome. Well, good deal. Well, gents, that was it. I will get this thing converted to MP4. It takes days, I swear it does, and get it up. You could probably go in there in a couple hours and hit the recording in the Collaborate room and listen to it. But eventually it will be uploaded, and I'll send out that link again.
Sounds good, Keith.
Okay, great. Well, this is Quantico out.
Okay.
Rob.
All right, brothers.